question is, what do you do? How do you go about adjusting to the changes as you age without being negative about it and without beating up on yourself?
Every little thing you do helps, even if it's just walking to the mailbox a couple of times a day. Our bodies are incredible, and they will heal, and they will still, even in our 50s, 60s, 70s, we can still make progress to a place where we feel good again. We're beautiful and glorious just as we are. Whether we've got to lose a few pounds, I wanted that woman who looks in the mirror and thinks, ugh, where did she go? To look a little harder and find the good things that are still there.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe.
If you're like me, and I imagine many of us do have a lot of this same topic in common, there are times when we look in the mirror and we just wonder, what the hell's going on? You go to the mirror and you expect to see one thing, the way we used to be, the way we want to be. And then you look again, you're like, that is not quite a match. So the question is, what do you do? How do you go about adjusting to the changes as you age without being negative about it and without beating up on yourself? And I'm so glad we have Kim Mosiman. I hope I pronounced that name. How you pronounce your last name, Kim?
It's Mosiman.
Mosiman. Okay, we have Kim Mosiman with us, and she's a wife and a mom and a loving grandma, and she's also an author and a coach that specializes in empowering women when they're embarking on their second act. She's a nutritionist with all kinds of certifications, but one of the things that's really special about her is that she has really gotten that unique blend of spiritual and physical wellness that's enabled her to write a book called Reflections of Joy, and I have a copy of the book right here. It's a lovely book. I enjoyed reading it. And there's so much in there, faith-infused strategies to help inspire us when it comes to our overall strength and beauty and basically holistic growth, all mind, body, spirit kinds of approaches to your overall wellness. So, Kim, welcome finally to the Vibe Living Podcast. We talked a long time ago. You kindly sent me your book. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be with you.
First of all, the book is lovely. And it's one of the kind of books that I love because I just like to go like this and say, okay, what am I going to learn today? Because there's so many key wisdoms in your book. What made you decide to write it?
Well, before I became an author, I owned a gym, and it was a challenge style gym. Big groups would start all at the same time, and they'd take a picture, and everyone would work out really hard and try to be the winner at the end of 9 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I heard over and over and over again from people was just how busy they were. They didn't have time to read. They didn't have time to cook. They didn't have time to do things. And so when I finally decided to write the book, I knew what I wanted to say, but I wanted to make sure that people had time. And so instead of having 7 long chapters, there are 7 chapters with 7 small parts in each one of them. So if a person has a nice, lazy, rainy day and they want to read the whole book, they can. But if they only have those little moments of time, I tried to give them a little bit that they could chew on and they could think about for 63 days if they needed to, or whatever it was. So, yeah.
It's a thought-provoking book, and it's also very thoughtful, the way you've broken things down, all the way down to words and their meaning and what they might stand for, or how significant they might be for us individually, like the word convenience.
Yeah.
which is so interesting because I've never really looked upon it in that way. But one of the things that's interesting as we age, that's when we begin to really do a lot of self exploration in a different way. We're looking for maybe more not just the meaning of life, but the meaning of our lives and what it is that
Yes.
we are supposed to be doing and how it is that we can move forth. How has your experience as a wellness coach working with middle-aged women really helped you guide women to figure out, what their second act is going to be like?
Becoming a middle aged woman has helped me understand the women I was working with before. When I was young, when I first became a trainer and a gym owner, gosh, I thought we could do anything. You could do anything that you set your mind on. And I had never lived in this middle aged body before. And I had never had the pressures or the freedoms of being a middle aged woman either. And so I, I guess I guess I learned through experiencing, through watching women achieve things, but also acknowledge their limitations as we get older. It's not that as
Yeah.
middle-aged women we can't do things, but perhaps the things that we want to do, we have to do differently. And what I've learned is that if you can experiment and try and approach things with a bit of, childlike curiosity,
Yeah.
again, we can learn to do things. And really, we can do anything, but perhaps we have to do them in a different way.
I agree. I've just recently I've been coming into the own awareness when I'm talking with my clients is that look, you don't really want to act and live like you're still 30 years old because
Mm-mm.
reality is you ain't 30 years old, baby. Okay.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it. And with that, this changes. Here's another reality that's really hard for us to talk about, but it's real. And that is we are all slowly aging and dying, basically.
Mhm.
That's the reality. And as a result, there are going to be things we're going to have to do to compensate for those things that are kind of leaving us or not in as high quantity. Like, for instance, now I understand why my grandmother took so many supplements. I couldn't understand it. She wasn't sick. I'm like, what is she taking all those pills? Now I get it because your body stops making some of the things, maybe not in the quantity that we need to. And then, the whole idea of maybe needing to take a nap in the middle of the day. That doesn't mean that you're, an old crotchety person. That means you're taking care of your body and giving it the fuel that it needs so that you can continue on with your day. These are just some things that we have to realize as harsh realities. What about you? How has your journey towards health differed maybe than it was 15 years ago?
I've learned that I need to take things in bite-sized pieces. So exactly like you said, I need some rest every once in a while. When I was in my 20s, 30s, even in my early 40s, I could go work in the garden. I live in the Midwest. We have this 3-month window where we can grow anything, and it's glorious. I used to go out and work in the garden for 8 hours at a time and be just fine. But today, if I were to go do that, bent over or on my hands and knees and pulling weeds and doing the different things, I'm going to feel terrible tomorrow. So, what I've learned to do for myself is I can still do those things, but I'm going to go out in the morning when it's beautiful, maybe listen to some music or a podcast. I'm going to work for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk, go for my daily walk so that I'm not all still hunched over. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to drink water. It used to be I could do anything for 8 hours, push myself, and never nourish myself and still be fine. Today, I know better.
Right. I can
Mhm.
remember doing all kinds of things to my body without even thinking about it, especially when I was a dancer. Usually, dancers are the worst when it comes to what they eat and, all the crazy things that they do to their bodies. You're thinking, well, of course they're eating healthy, but that is not the case. But they're young. I was young at
Mhm.
that time. Thankfully, I started making changes in terms of the things that I do to my body and what I put in my body when I was about in my 30s. I began to get those building blocks. But it doesn't always happen that way. As
Mm-mm.
we go into our own self discovery, we get into our 50s and stuff, that's in some cases when we start thinking about that. But it's never too late. And it doesn't have to be so hard.
Right.
As I was reading your book about ways to make embracing change easier, what are some of your tips around that?
I just think you need to enjoy life, right? And so when I was young, I used to deprive myself. I used to discipline myself in certain ways, and it was okay that I didn't maybe enjoy the food I was eating or the exercise I was doing. But life is too short, and the things I'm doing now, I eat what I want, but I make sure every time I sit down that I eat a protein, fat, and a carb.
Hmm.
Doesn't I don't track it. I don't weigh it. I don't do those things. I know that when I put certain things in my body, I'm going to feel a certain way. I move every day for pleasure. I like to walk. I like to be outside. I like it even more when I at my winter home in Florida and the beach is right there. But what I've learned is to do the things that I like to do. And it makes me keep coming back to it again and again and again. And if I do things that are good for my body, I try to do the things that I'm going to be able to repeat tomorrow. So walking, I used to envy people who danced or who run. My own daughter-in-law is a ballerina. I watch her push her body in amazing ways, but she too will age someday, and it'll feel different, and she'll have to find other ways to move, to
Absolutely.
feel
And
good.
you're absolutely right. It's interesting because I was a ballet dancer for years. I took ballet forever. I actually stopped dancing and performing at 62.
Oh
Of
my.
course, yeah, I was not doing toe anymore. I stopped doing toe when I was in my 30s. Like I said, I stopped doing some of the damage. I stopped doing that. But I was still dancing up until
Mhm.
62. And then I thought, well, I don't want to be one of those folks. They say, well, she needs to really sit down. She's sit down. That's too much. It's scaring me. So I stopped. I didn't want to be that lady. But I still dance. But I modified what I
Mhm.
did because intrinsically in the back of my mind, if I'm going to do a pirouette or some kind of thing involving rotations, I might be able to do the 4 or 5, but I'm okay if I just do the two because I
Right.
don't want to hurt myself. I've learned to embrace this part of aging that keeps me healthy. The good thing is, though, when you have worked out for as long as you do as a dancer, there are some things that are just there.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I just I have excellent balance. If I trip over something, I almost fall, but I don't every time.
Hmm.
It's just really weird. And I know that comes from, all the dance, but that doesn't mean that you can't still do things with your body and learn how to protect your body. In fact, what can you tell someone who's thinking about exercising to help get stronger, as they age and to even if they've never exercised before and they're kind of afraid, what can you tell them? What steps should they take to get ready to do that? Because there's really nothing to be afraid of.
Mm-mm. No, I would say if you're thinking about it, just start small.
Hmm.
I've worked with people for many years who were very deconditioned and some who were on the backside of an injury, perhaps, and just starting to move again. Every little thing you do helps, even if it's just walking to the mailbox a couple of times a day. It maybe it's learning how to position your body and just rising up and down out of a chair. And sometimes people think, "Oh, that's just such a little action, it doesn't make a difference," but it does make a difference. And if people would choose a an action that feels good for them and feels right and do it faithfully every day and pay attention to when all of a sudden it's easy and then do a little bit more and repeat that for a few days. I think most of your listeners would be surprised at how quickly their health and their physical ability can come back to them. Our bodies are incredible
Right.
and they will heal and they will still, even in our 50s, 60s, 70s, we can still make progress to a place where we feel good again.
Absolutely. I've been experimenting with some things myself that I know that I've kind of let go of. During the summer, it's really easy for me to drink lots and lots of water. But on the winter, because it's cooler and everything else, it's just not as easy to do it. So I decided to start preparing myself for the fall time by increasing my water even more. And I discovered a couple of things. First of all, I was not as hungry. I was
Mhm.
not snacking in between or any of that. It started getting a little cooler, and I saw myself subconsciously beginning to head off the water, stop drinking this water as much. And the next
Mhm.
thing I knew, I had a craving for this snack and that snack and everything else. And I said, okay, times have changed. Even though it's a little bit cooler, I still have to make sure that I'm drinking my water. So these are incremental, small
Yep.
changes. They don't have to be long. And I have found at this stage of life, I like to say now, I'll be 70 in 3 years. So do the math. Okay.
Nice.
So when
Yes.
I be 70 in 3 years, at this stage of life, I really want to find opportunities to maybe, as I say, hack some things so that I'm still taking care of me, but the effort is different. No longer stressing myself out. I am aware of calories, but I am to stop beating up on myself. If I want to eat a piece of pound cake, I'm going to eat that piece of pound cake. Now,
Yep.
maybe I'll walk a little further the next day, or maybe the next day after that, I won't go back for a second piece of pound cake. It's
Yep.
just little tweaking things that go. And you talk a lot about, letting go of
Hmm.
some of the stuff that we used to hold ourselves so rigid for, so accountable for. And you share stories of what you've learned and the adventures you've gone through. What do you think women need to let go of, and how will this help them when it comes to easing into what you would call your second act?
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things that I think that we hold on to as women, and our current state of social media, although it's lovely to be able to stay in touch with people and to interact, it's brought forth some of those things and even heightened them. So let go of insecurities, right? We are who we are. We're beautiful and glorious just as we are, whether we've got to lose a few pounds or whether, I don't know. I think about 2020 when I couldn't make it to the hair salon, or just the different things. Let go of limitations. Like we were talking, you can be anything you want to be. You can you can still do the things you used to do. We just have to change them and be adventurous. And sometimes we have to let go of our fear of trying something new. Since I don't have to work a 40-hour-a-week job anymore and I'm not chasing my kids around anymore, I've had the opportunity to take painting classes and photography classes and write a book. There are so many things that we need to let go of. And really, I think in today's society, one of the biggest ones is numbing. I think a lot of people are, and it's an election year, so it's even more stressful. But I think people are always looking for that thing to make life better. And life is really, truly so good as it is.
Ladies, are you ready to vibe your life? The V.I.B.E Wellness Woman Network is your go-to space for holistic health, empowerment, and community, created just for women over 40. Inside, you'll find expert-led workshops, wellness challenges, and exclusive coaching, and a sisterhood that supports your journey to being vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered. Join today and get access to fitness tips, spiritual renewal, menopause support, and more, all designed to help you thrive in midlife and beyond. Visit the VibeWellnessWomanNetwork.com and start your journey to wellness today.
I'm glad you brought that up because I always tell people everything works out for you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. Because if it didn't, you wouldn't be here talking to me right now. So everything really
Hmm.
does work out for you. Or as I like to say to myself, everything works out for me. It
Hmm.
may not work out in the way I thought. It may not work out in the timing that I thought it was going to work out. It may
Hmm.
come in a different guise, but it works out.
Yeah.
It does. And I think that we need to revel in that and be
Mhm.
grateful for it. I know that we happen to be a nation of strivers and achievers and all these other ers that we have. But I think in some ways it has dummied us down in terms of staying present
Yes.
and appreciating what's happening right in the here and now. And I'm
Mhm.
just wondering, when you're talking with women and when you're talking about your book too, how do you do that? How do you figure out how to find the joy, hang on to the joy, stay present in the joy? What helps you do that?
I disconnect. And I don't disconnect for long periods of time, days or weeks, but when I'm with a person, I try to be with a person. And when I'm in nature or I like to talk to God when I'm walking.
Yes.
It's my version of multitasking, if you will. But I don't put my earbuds in. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to podcasts. If God's being quiet or I'm stewing over something, I just listen to what's going on around me. I think it's very important in this world full of noise and opportunities for engagement that we disengage sometimes so that we can experience and so that we can process what we've experienced. Like you said, there are so many good things and everything will work out. It will work out. And you're right. It may not work out the way I've been hoping for or praying for or working for, but it will work out. And if we pay attention to those things, it can be so much better than what you were expecting in the first place. And I know sometimes it sounds a little Pollyanna, and I worried when I wrote the book, reflections of joy, la di da, my life is great. Well, sure, I have problems too, but I really try to focus in on the what could happen or the what is happening instead of, gosh, it didn't work out, you know?
Well, I would imagine that's where your faith comes in. I know that's where my faith comes in. I
Mm,
tell my kids all the time, I have four daughters, and they're at that stage what I call hair on fire moments. They're all in their 30s, and everything's like, you know,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I'm hoping that by the time you get into our stage of life, it's like, oh, my God, look at that.
mhm,
And
mhm.
then you go into prayer or you go into gratitude or disconnect from it because
Yep.
you can only have so much control over things. And it's interesting how when we go to through these stages of life, how we begin to change how we look at things. And as I said in the beginning of the podcast, sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, is that Linus? I can't,
Mhm,
where's the 21-year-old? Well, she hasn't been around for 40 something years, but still, where is she? Where did she go? And you talk
mhm,
about that. You talk about body responsibility. What's the
mhm.
difference between body responsibility and, the whole body positivity thing that you hear about?
Well, body positivity is important to me. Everybody is beautiful. Everybody, no matter what condition they are in. We're beautiful, we're worthy, we're created in his image.
Mhm.
But we have responsibility. And I think that as we look at our families, it's my responsibility to stay as healthy and fit as I can for as long as I can. I want my grandchildren to remember me. I want them to remember me down on the ground playing with them and giggling.
Right.
I want them to remember sitting in my lap as I read them a story. I want them to remember spending time around the kitchen counter, baking cookies or whatever that is. I have a responsibility to be healthy so that my family doesn't have to worry about me, care for me. It, um, and so society doesn't have to care for me
Right.
either. I mean, and I know that there are circumstances that are beyond our controls. But gosh, if we have the opportunity to move our bodies, eat good food, calm our minds, reduce our stress, and live healthy lives, how much better for us, for our families, for our society is it just by being a little bit aware?
Yes,
Yeah.
I like to think about this in this way. Sometimes you hear people complaining about, well, it's expensive to eat organic, or it's expensive to hire a coach, or it's expensive to take those supplements. All
Mhm,
things that could possibly help them feel better and be better and improve the overall quality of their life. But I said, well, you either pay for it on the front end or
mhm,
the back end. But guaranteed you're going to pay for it. And when you pay for it on the back end, it's not necessarily you who's paying for it. It's your family
mhm.
and friends and things like that who you're probably not of this earth any longer if you're
Yep.
paying on it on the back end. So I'd rather pay for it on the front end and enjoy doing it at the time. There's movement that you can do that can be fun. There are certain
Mhm.
organic foods when they're in season, they're less money and they're so much good for you and they last a lot longer in your refrigerator and just so many reasons why you want to eat organic.
Yep.
Sometimes you need the motivation and it's hard to find the motivation on your own. You need someone to celebrate with when you get to a certain level of whatever you're working on. And that's
Yep.
where a coach can come in. They help to keep you motivated. They help give you information. But most importantly, there's someone that can celebrate your wins and kind
Yep.
of commensurate with you when you don't make the goals. These are all things that can be value added in your life. And yeah, it costs a little, but the benefits are far outweigh the detriments. And I think it's all in how
Mhm.
you look at things.
I agree. I agree 100%. And people would always say that to me. I don't have the time to cook good food and I don't have the money to spend on good food. But, like you were saying, if you buy fresh organic produce in season and you buy extra, throw some in the freezer. I mean, there are ways to save it for another season.
That's right.
My husband and I, we live in Iowa. I mean,
Oh,
there's we purchase half a beef and a hog every year and have that processed. It's expensive maybe at the moment, or not expensive. It's much cheaper in the long run, several dollars a pound less when you look at the whole. It's an investment at the moment, but I can go to the grocery store now weekly and spend less than $50 a week, even in this time of it seems price increases at the grocery store.
mhm.
So I'm not buying processed food. I'm not buying soda. Those things are very expensive.
Yes, they are.
So
They're
if you
prohibitive.
take,
I mean, yeah.
yeah, you take those things out, you've got plenty of money to spend. Well,
It's amazing, isn't it?
yeah.
I always, one way to look at it when you're trying to make some lifestyle changes for the better, instead of thinking about all the things you have to give up, why don't you just start
Mm,
adding things that are healthy? And as you begin
yes.
to adding things like that walk, more water, maybe eating a nice fresh green salad in the afternoon instead of snacking on chips, beginning to make those changes, you will begin to find that you'll start looking for other opportunities to be healthy. You'll start looking for other ways to add to that list and you'll stop craving some of those things that aren't as healthy. You'll start wanting to stop doing those things you used to do that aren't as beneficial for your mind body spirit connection. It really starts with a mindset of, you know what, I'm going to try an experiment here.
Mhm.
I'm going to see what I can do, especially as I age, that is going to be ultimately improving the quality of my life.
Yep.
And it does mean maybe making some changes, but it's worth it. I don't know. It's hard to be joyful if you're sick, but
It
it's
is.
pretty difficult,
Yes.
right? But it
Yes.
certainly is a lot easier. You certainly got to jump ahead of the game if you can do things. You can still be joyful when you're feeling good.
Yes. Hmm.
When things are going well. When you wrote this book, what was the message that you wanted people to get from Reflections of Joy? I want to show this in.
Mm. I wanted to reach women who were in the circumstance that I was in. I wanted that woman who looks in the mirror and thinks, ugh, where did she go? To look a little harder and find the good things that are still there. If we search for the good, whether it's in my eyes are still 20, thanks to a great hairdresser, my hair is still 20. Um, you know, my body may not look like it did when I was 20, but it gave me good things. It gave me two wonderful boys, and it's given me a lifetime of movement and joy. And if we start looking at that what we can have and what we can do, rather than what we can't have and what we can no longer do, you can start to turn things around a little bit and you can look forward to it. It's so much easier to continue momentum when it's going in a positive direction. And, you talked a little bit about adding things in. I tried to give opportunities in everything I talked about to find ways to crowd out something. I don't like to give things up. I don't like to tell my clients, oh, you can't eat potato chips, right? But I like to tell them you can try jicama because it's great for dipping just like the chips. You can try a new movement. You can try yoga. You can try whatever. you can. Look at the things you can. Look at the things you can do. Look at the things you love about yourself. I may have gained weight 2 or 3 times in my life, 20 times, 30 times, whatever it is, but I still got great legs.
Okay, there you go.
I can look in the mirror and put on that skirt that hits at my knees. I don't wear them shorter than that anymore because I am almost 60. But I've got great legs.
Mhm.
Look at the things you love. And if you can't find anything you love in yourself, ask someone, because you have those 4 daughters. Those 4 girls look at you and they see someone incredible that they love very much. Look at your spouse, look at if your parents are still here. I think about the way I look at my sons and my daughter-in-laws, and it makes me sad when they are feeling frumpy and yucky.
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
always find something beautiful in them, and I know that they can find it in me. So if you're struggling to look in the mirror and find anything good, ask someone
That's a
that
great
loves you.
idea.
Yeah,
That's a great idea because how we view ourselves is very rarely how others view us. We have a tendency to be so hard on ourselves and be our own worst critic. We got to stop that, especially as we age. You got to stop that. Really, you should have no time for that, really. You should be
right.
talking about all. I was just talking with my daughter this morning about how, abundantly blessed we are, all the gifts that he has given us. And it's really amazing when you really take a look at what you have versus what you don't have. And you always come up on the upper end. And I'm so glad that I had a chance to talk with you today, Kim, and to
Yeah.
share your wisdom. I love this book. I really do. And if you see, I keep it. I didn't just keep it here because I knew I was talking to you today. It's been here ever since I got it, really, because I will stop and just kind of reflect and find something to kind of uplift me. And being an entrepreneur sometimes can be a lonely journey because it's
Mhm.
just you. I can,
Yep.
let me see if I can find some joy today to kind of help me out. So thank you for writing this book and sharing parts of yourself. It's really been wonderful having you here today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it as well.
Good. And for those of you who want to find out more about Kim and her services and also her book, go to her website. It's right there on the show page as well as all of her social media. Find out more about her. Thank you so much for listening. I am so happy that you have, and I want to invite you to listen to the other podcasts that are here. It's amazing the shows that we've had this past year. I've talked to so many great people, and I hope you have enjoyed them. And if you have, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the podcast because we want to kind of, was it sharing is caring, spread the joy, spread the vibe as it was. Thanks so much for wanting to learn more about being vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered, about learning how to vibe. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Vibe Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.